Okay, it's time we address Genji and why he's really bad. Because a lot of people don't think he's really bad, but he is. So I want to talk about why. First of all, I think the main reason Genji is terrible is his risk to reward ratio is that of probably the worst in the entire game. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I mean the amount of risk you take to receive certain levels of reward, okay? And obviously that varies from hero to hero, but generally speaking, you want a kind of risk reward ratio where you're getting about as much reward for as much risk as you put in. For example, a good indicator of someone with high risk to reward ratios is like Ana. Ana has a pretty good risk to reward ratio. You're risking being susceptible to dive and things like that, for obviously your reward being that you can pump out a ton of damage, a ton of healing, you have great cooldowns, a great ultimate, and things like that, right? However, I think Ana is overtuned right now. I think she's still a good example of it. The thing is with Genji, though, is his risk to reward ratio isn't just not good and isn't just worse than other DPS. It is just simply terrible. It's just not worth it. So, for example, think of McCree. What is his risk to reward ratio? Well, there's basically no risk. He basically has no risk. First of all, he's a hit scan hero, which makes him extremely easy to play. He does a ton of damage. Both of his cooldowns are great. He has a ton of HP. His ult isn't great, but that's okay. He's relatively easy to play. I think I already said that. But if you're really thinking about his risk to reward ratio, there's basically no risk for essentially infinite reward. I mean, he's a hit scan who does a ton of damage, who has a pulse bomb on a cooldown. You know, you don't even really need to aim it because it's magnetic and it just flies to whatever you throw it at, and things like that, right? There's no risk for McCree. But for Genji, there's a ton. The thing is with Genji is, unless you play the hero perfectly, and when I say perfectly, I mean perfectly. If you make any mistakes on this hero, you're throwing the game essentially. He's so bad. But even if you play him absolutely perfectly, there's still a good 50-25% chance that you lose anyway just because the hero is really bad, right? Like, for example, the amount of times I've snuck up behind someone, right-clicked them, dashed them, right-click melee'd them, deflected all of their cooldowns or their shots back at them, and then continued to right-click them and still haven't killed them is insane. But, like, think if McCree was doing a similar thing. McCree is just, I clicked him twice, he is dead. Genji is, I used all of my cooldowns, all of my ammo, my ultimate, all of my movement completely perfectly, and it's still not enough to kill someone. But we have heroes like Ashe and Soldier and McCree and such and Reaper who are just brain dead easy to play. Widow as well, completely brain dead easy to play. You don't need good mechanics really at all to play them effectively. They're just simply very broken heroes. And when you think about it like that, you quickly start to realize just how bad Genji really is. Like, he doesn't really have a purpose. Because why would you pick him when you can pick Tracer, for example? Or even Echo. Echo's pretty good right now. I think the main components that make Genji really bad is his lack of damage. He has one of the lowest damages in the entire game. Not only that, his projectile is that of some of the smallest projectiles in the game. He also has some of the slowest projectiles in the game. So you have a low damage projectile that's tiny, that moves really slowly, and has a ton of spread, and unless you hit all three of your projectiles, you're doing less damage than you would had you just melee'd someone. It is more effective to melee someone than it is to hit one projectile on someone. His damage is that low. Which is fine, because he has burst potential, because he can obviously throw 3 shurikens at a time, whether you're right-clicking or left-clicking, obviously. But, like, even then, if you really think about it, most of the time, you actually are just better off meleeing people. Right? Unless you're, like, right in their face and you can, like, properly land all of your shurikens, you may as well just melee them. So, he's a hero with no ammo as well, so you basically are reloading all of the time. You spend more time reloading than you do actually shooting, which is obviously really problematic for the hero. And because he's reloading so much, and also because he does no damage, he's really bad in the mid fight and the poking phase, because he doesn't have enough ammo or damage to actually kill anyone successfully most of the time on his own, right? Think of a hero that does no damage and has no ammo. You're spending so much time reloading that the damage that you did do is so easy to heal up because it's so minimal anyway, that in most cases it's completely irrelevant to have a Genji shooting you. For example, I would rather 1v1 a Genji than an Ana, or a Genji than a Kiriko, or a Genji than a Zen. Those support heroes are just simply more dangerous than Genji is. There's no purpose picking Genji when there are other heroes who just do what he does a lot better. Bad matchups for Genji, obviously. A big one for this is a lot of people think Monkey is a Genji counter. Monkey is not a Genji counter. Genji is a complicated hero in the sense that he doesn't have much counters. There aren't many heroes in the game where you pick him just to deal with Genji. There are heroes good against Genji, but there aren't many counters. For example, Monkey isn't a counter to Genji, because Genji actually does pretty good against Monkey. Or at least he used to, when he did some damage and he had some ammo. But now that he has less damage and less ammo, he's not as effective as fighting Monkey anymore. Before, when he had his damage and his ammo, you could out DPS him if you were landing all headshots on the Monkey. And so you could win if you were just a better Genji player than he was. Obviously, you would have to put in way more effort to win, but that makes sense because Monkey's a tank hero and Genji's a DPS. In most cases, that Monkey should win that, which is fine. I'm all for that. I don't mind Genji losing engagements. That's okay. The game would be terrible if he just won all the time, right? And I wouldn't want that as much as anyone else would want that. Nobody wants Genji to be overpowered. No one really even wants Genji to be meta. I don't even want Genji meta. However, we're at the point in the game where Genji is unironically worse now than he was in Overwatch 1. And in Overwatch 1, he was considered a throw pick for years. Like, he was legitimately the worst hero in the game for actual years. He was only good for about 2 weeks, and then he went back to being really, really bad again. And about, I think it was July or June of 2020, he got really good. He got turbo buffed, and then they immediately got him to being worse than he was before the buffs. So he was terrible, then he got good, and then he was worse than he was before, which didn't make any sense, because why would you make the hero worse than they were before they were buffed if they needed to be buffed in the first place? I don't know. It's Blizzard balance team. They don't know what they're doing. Okay, that's fine. Another thing with Genji is he's just really buggy, okay? He's just incredibly buggy. Like, the amount of times I've deflected in someone's face and they've shot me in the face and I've died while holding deflect is criminal, okay? Or the amount of times I've experienced the wall climb bug. Like, these bugs have been in the game for 7 years and they're still here, okay? Why is it that sometimes I climb a wall and the wall feels like it's made of like a trampoline and it just ejects me off the wall for no reason? That happens all the time. With dash bug as well, where you dash and you don't go anywhere, you just stay completely still. That happens all the time as well, to basically every Genji player. Pretty sure you can tell any of these bugs to any Genji player and they'll be like, yeah, I've experienced that 7 times in the last 5 minutes. Because it just happens all the time, okay? So, deflect is super buggy, dash is buggy, the wall climb doesn't work half the time because it's really buggy. But it is what it is, okay? I mean, that's not necessarily a giant deal, okay? I mean, obviously I'd prefer if he wasn't buggy, but since he is, then it's one of those things where you just can't really do anything about it. It is what it is. If they're not going to fix it, they're not going to fix it, right? Genji relies on his team way more than many of the other heroes in the game. Like, there aren't many heroes in the game where if your team don't pick for you, you kind of lose. There aren't many of those heroes in the game. And I don't think I think only really Genji falls into that category where it's like, oh, well, I have Moira Lucio, I just simply can't play Genji. Like, in Moira Lucio, you just cannot play Genji. I mean, you can't play Genji in basically any circumstance, even if with, like, Mercy Ana or something like that, or Ana Zen, you still can't really play Genji. He's just really, really bad. So, it doesn't even matter what your support lane is, but if it's Lucio Moira, just swap. So, like, I'm all for one-tricking the hero and trying to play the hero anyway, even though he's terrible. But, like, if you're actively throwing the game on the best comp for Genji, then imagine the worst comp for Genji. Like, it's just simply unplayable. You can't do it. Another contribution to Genji being terrible is the fact that hit scans are really good right now, and they're not even really good. They're just broken. They're just simply way too strong. They're just ridiculously overpowered. Same with the supports. The supports all being really, really overpowered. Same as obviously the hit scans being really, really overpowered. There's just no counterplay. There's nothing you can do. They just kill you. I don't get it. I don't know why McCree and stuff like that in the game, where they're easier to play, they have better cooldowns, they do more damage, and they're just simply better, and they have more damage mitigation, they're more easy to survive on, they require less effort to play, they just simply get more reward for existing. It's like, how can the game be balanced, or be said to be balanced, when you have heroes like McCree in the same game as heroes like Genji? It doesn't make sense, at least to me anyway, because Genji's unplayable, and McCree is broken. How can the game be balanced, right? It clearly is not balanced. Regardless of what the big streamers say, like, I don't want to out any names or anything, obviously, because it's not like it matters enough for me to do that. But, like, a lot of streamers are like, dude, the game is the most balanced it's ever been. I'm like, yeah, okay, sure, that may be right, but to call it balanced at all is kind of pathetic, because it's not. Not even, like, a little bit, either. Like, the game's a joke right now. Like, all the supports are too strong. There's like 5 playable DPS heroes, and the rest are terrible, and half the tanks are just awful as well. So the game is not balanced right now, but people like to say they are. So yes. Another thing, Genji is super easy to counter. Like, realistically, I don't think there's many heroes in the game. I know I said earlier about the counter thing, how he doesn't really have any counters. I'll change it to, he's easy to shut down. He's easy to deal with, right? In the same sense that Genji doesn't really have any counters because he's so versatile and he can do so much. It's kind of the same for Genji, where he's just so weak that basically any hero can deal with him if they know what they're doing. Which, again, isn't problematic. I don't mind that. I don't mind the hero being hard to play. In fact, I like the hero being hard to play. I would dislike the hero if he would become really easy to play all of a sudden. I wouldn't want to play him. A big reason I love Genji is that he's difficult to play, and you get rewarded for being good at him. However, the problems start to arise when I'm picking Genji, and then I hold tab and I go, wow, the enemy team has McCree. I lose on the spot. There is nothing I can do. I lose. Or they have Mercy. I lose. Right? Or they have Widow. I lose. It's just like, there's nothing you can do. You just go, wow, man, they picked that hero. Looks like I'm throwing the game unless I change. It's dumb, right? That shouldn't be in the game. And I would expect the devs to think that as well, but clearly not. With Genji being this terrible and borderlining on completely unplayable, the only people who still play him is like Necros and Shatter and Liar and people like that. But, like, other than that, no one touches this hero. I mean, Apply plays him sometimes, but Apply will play him for, like, 2 minutes and then instantly swap back to hit scan because there's no fucking point picking the hero, right? Apply, I'm a big fan of Apply. Apply's a very good player, obviously. Obviously, very good Genji player, very OG Genji player, but even he doesn't like playing Genji. Even he thinks Genji's terrible, which is objective truth. The hero is just terrible. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to talk about. I've a text document with way more on it, but this video is already long enough. Anyway, the main purpose was just to explain to people that Genji is just bad. He's simply a terrible hero, and that's okay. So main points of why: he has very low ammo, very low damage, his ultimate is completely useless, his projectiles are too slow, they're too small, they're too hard to hit. He loses in the 1v1 to basically every hero in the game. He relies on his team far too much. He has basically no solo play whatsoever. If you pick him and you're not working with your team, you're throwing the game. Every other hero in the game is just simply better than he is, so there's just no point picking him when you can just pick anything else. Hit scans are, again, in the game, so it doesn't fucking matter. You just lose on the spot if they pick a hit scan hero. He's a flank hero, but if you flank with him, you just lose on the spot because he can't flank. He's not survivable enough to flank. He just dies on the spot if you do. And this all goes to, like, if you're like a plat player, right, then this probably doesn't resonate much with you because you're like, no, Genji runs my lobbies in plat, and it's like, fair enough, right? That it is what it is. But like, that is just, you have to accept that that's not happening because Genji's good. That's happening because you're fucking terrible. Okay, that's just the reality. Okay, it's the same reason like Widowmaker doesn't get touched in like top 500, right? Because in bronze they're like, oh dude, she's so bad in bronze, so she's completely broken in top 500, right? It's kind of similar to Genji, where he's like, Genji's unplayable in top 500, but he's not that bad in bronze, right? But we need to come to a conclusion here where we need to realize I would rather a hero be very good, and I'd rather a hero be playable in top 500 and broken in bronze than a hero be broken in bronze and unplayable in top 500, because it just doesn't make any sense, right? Like, I'm sorry, if you're a bronze player, dude, you have no say in game balance, like, whatsoever. You just simply do not. Because if you did, you wouldn't be bronze. If you had any understanding of the game, you wouldn't be bronze, okay? And that's just reality. Anyway, I rambled enough. It is what it is, man. This hero's terrible. I'm gonna keep one-tricking him, throwing games with him. I love this hero. Goodbye, I guess. I don't know.
Fuck, it's Reaper. No shit. Good shot, mini diva. Good job.